You know how everyone's talking about hybrid infrastructure, but it's kind of like, where do you even begin, right?
Right.
Well, get this. We're going to dive deep into a solution today that's like almost suspiciously elegant.
Okay, I like where this is going.
We're talking Proxmox, Kubernetes, and Ceph all working together. Imagine, like, picture this.
Okay.
You've got this system, right? And you can smoothly transition those older applications into a more modern setup.
Oh, interesting. Without a massive rip and replace.
Exactly. No rip and replace. That's the beauty of it.
Okay, that's impressive.
And we're going to break it all down.
Yeah.
So what's really intriguing about these three, Proxmox, Kubernetes, Ceph, is how they work together.
They really do complement each other in a cool way. Think of Proxmox as your base camp.
Okay.
It's that solid virtualization platform, your foundation. Then you bring in Kubernetes.
Okay.
And Kubernetes is like the conductor of an orchestra. Make sure all the containerized applications are in sync.
Got it. Got it.
And to top it off, you have Ceph.
Okay, Ceph. Yeah, you mentioned this earlier. Super smart storage. Those were your words. What makes it stand out?
Okay, so let's say you have some data that's accessed constantly.
Like what? Give me an example.
Customer transaction info, that kind of thing. Ceph can be set up to keep that on really fast SSDs.
Makes sense for speed.
Exactly. But then you have those archive files, the ones you might need once a year, if that. Ceph can say, you know what, let's move these to a more cost-effective storage.
Wow. So it's like thinking ahead.
Exactly. It's anticipating your needs, basically.
That's incredibly cool. I mean, that's like having a storage system that's like got ESP or something.
And there's more. With Ceph, you get this flexibility. You can use block storage with RBD.
Yeah.
Perfect for applications that need that raw power and speed.
Right.
And OGI, you also have file storage with CephFS, which lets multiple containers share data, without any hiccups.
So it's like adaptable. It just like morphs to fit what you need.
You got it. It's like a custom-tailored storage solution.
That's seriously impressive. We're talking enterprise-grade capabilities, but without the typical enterprise headaches.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay, hit me.
The Ceph CSI plugin. Imagine if you have like a universal translator, right? But for your entire infrastructure.
Okay, I'm listening.
This plugin allows Kubernetes to talk directly to Ceph.
No way.
They can provision and manage storage seamlessly.
So no more manually configuring storage for every single application.
You got it. Imagine the time saved.
Yeah.
Developers could just request storage through Kubernetes and boom, the CSI plugin takes care of the rest. They don't even need to know how Ceph works.
So for someone who's been stuck writing manual configuration scripts, this is a game changer.
Absolutely. It's a game changer because it reduces errors and streamlines everything. Just imagine the headaches you'd avoid.
Okay, I'm sold on the Ceph magic, but let's talk about actually running the system because we're talking about Kubernetes inside Proxmox virtual machines, right? Doesn't that just drain resources like crazy? It's like running those power-hungry games on a 10-year-old laptop.
It's a valid point, and this is where understanding how to allocate your resources properly is super important.
Okay.
Ceph, as powerful as it is, can be demanding on your system. You have to make sure your Proxmox nodes have enough CPU, RAM, and especially enough network bandwidth.
So just like you wouldn't host Thanksgiving dinner in a tiny apartment,
Exactly.
you need to make sure you've got the space for all this powerful stuff to work properly.
Exactly. And it's not just about raw power. We're talking network I/O too. Ceph, especially when you need it to perform, it relies on fast networking to move all that data around quickly.
Okay, so if you're streaming a movie but your internet connection is bad, you get that awful buffering.
Exactly. Same idea here. If we don't factor in those network demands, we're going to end up with a bottleneck.
And that could cripple the whole system.
It could. It's like having a sports car with a tiny fuel line.
All that power, but you can't use it.
Right. But if we plan it out right, allocate those resources properly, then you get a solid base for a high availability, scalable system. And that's what you want, a system that can handle anything you throw at it.
So it's like finding that balance, right? We need enough power to avoid those bottlenecks, but we don't want to go overboard on hardware. It's like finding the sweet spot between a performance car and fuel efficiency.
You nailed it. It's a balancing act for sure. But with careful planning and the right tools, it's absolutely doable. And that's where the beauty of this hybrid approach really shines. It can start small, dip your toes in, maybe move a non-critical application over first.
A test subject.
Exactly, a test subject. And then as your confidence grows, as your expertise grows, you gradually scale up.
So you don't have to go from 0 to 100 overnight. You can actually take it step by step. And that's a huge relief, I think, for anyone who's like, oh my God, overhauling my entire infrastructure. I don't even know where to start.
It's all about building bridges, not, blowing everything up.
I like that.
So let's say you have this legacy database application.
Yeah.
It's been running on dedicated hardware for ages.
Right.
With Proxmox, you can easily virtualize that and slide it right into this new hybrid environment.
Okay, so no disruption to what's already working.
Exactly. Minimal disruption.
Yeah.
So we got our legacy app sitting pretty in its little Proxmox VM.
What's next? What's next in this hybrid wonderland?
No, it's Kubernetes time.
All right, let's do it.
We'll create some more virtual machines inside Proxmox. These are going to be our dedicated Kubernetes masters and workers. They're like the specialized crew on a movie set.
Okay.
Each one has its own important role to play.
So we're not just dumping everything onto one giant virtual machine. We're creating a more distributed system.
Yes, exactly. That separation of concerns is key with Kubernetes.
Okay.
It lets us use our resources better, and it also provides isolation. So if one application decides to act up,
It doesn't crash the whole party.
exactly. And this is where picking the right tools for the job is so important. For our Kubernetes nodes, we want a Linux distribution that's lightweight, something that's optimized for containers.
Something lean and mean.
Lean and mean. Distributions like Talos or K3s are perfect for this. They're like the high-performance engines in our infrastructure race car.
So instead of this big, bulky operating system that eats up all your resources, we're going with something specifically designed for running containers efficiently.
Exactly. It's like choosing the right shoes for a marathon. You want something that gives you the support you need, but doesn't slow you down.
So we've got our Proxmox Basecamp, our Ceph storage is managing our data like a pro, and our Kubernetes cluster is ready to orchestrate the show. What's the next act?
Time to connect our storage superstar, Ceph, with our Container Maestro Kubernetes.
Oh, we go.
This is where that Ceph CSI plugin we talked about really shines. Remember the universal translator?
Oh, yeah. Breaking down those communication barriers.
Right. We install and configure that plugin within our Kubernetes cluster, and it acts as the go-between, allowing them to talk. Kubernetes can directly provision and manage storage from our Ceph cluster.
So our Kubernetes applications can just request storage? No need to get into the nitty-gritty of how Ceph does its thing?
Exactly. It's like having a personal assistant for your data.
That's amazing. So we're talking like a self-organizing data center where everything just like works together.
You're getting it. That's the idea. But, of course, there are always challenges, right?
Right. There's always a catch.
There are always a few things to watch out for. While this hybrid setup offers a ton of advantages, it does add a layer of complexity.
Okay, so more moving parts.
In a way, yes. Understanding how these technologies interact, and more importantly, how to troubleshoot when something goes wrong, that's critical.
Okay, so it's kind of like leveling up your troubleshooting skills.
That's a good way to put it. You're moving from, like, a toolbox to a whole ecosystem. Before, if something broke, you knew where to look. But in this hybrid world, it's more about seeing how everything's connected.
So less about fixing a single server and more about understanding how that server fits into the bigger picture, how it interacts with the network, the storage, the applications, everything.
Exactly. And the good news is there are some awesome tools out there to help you do that. We touched on monitoring earlier, but let's dig a little deeper.
Yeah, let's talk tools. Always love a good tool.
Tools like Prometheus and Grafana, those are going to become your new best friends. Think of it. A real-time dashboard showing you the health of your entire setup, CPU usage, network traffic, storage, you name it, it's all there.
So you're not just waiting for something to break, you can see potential problems before they even happen.
Exactly. Like, let's say one of your Proxmox nodes, the CPU starts going haywire. Prometheus and Grafana, they can send you an alert right away.
Oh, wow, so you can catch it early.
Exactly. You have time to investigate, fix it before it affects anything important.
That's huge. So it's like having like a digital watchdog keeping an eye on everything.
Exactly. And the cool thing is, these tools, you can really customize them. Track the metrics that matter to you, set your own alert levels, even visualize the data in a way that makes sense for your team.
This is starting to sound less like infrastructure management, more like infrastructure like orchestration. It's like you're conducting this whole symphony of technology.
I love that analogy. And just like a conductor needs to know every instrument, you need to really understand how each piece of this hybrid setup works and how they all work together.
So for our listeners who are thinking, all right, I'm ready to give this hybrid thing a shot, what's the best piece of advice you can give them?
Don't be afraid to learn as you go. Experiment, make mistakes. That's how you really figure it out. There's tons of info online, documentation, forums, all that. Don't be afraid to ask questions, learn from other people's experiences. It's a journey.
It's true. The more you put into it, the more you'll get out of it. And with a system like this that's adaptable, it's powerful, it's worth the effort.
It absolutely is. It can change how you do things for the better.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive for today. Big thanks to our expert for breaking down Proxmox, Kubernetes, and Ceph. We hope this has given you some ideas, some inspiration to maybe try something new. Remember, modernizing your infrastructure, it doesn't have to be this big, scary thing. Start small, experiment, and who knows, you might just build something amazing.
Mm.
Thanks for listening.